Hi, I'm Maya from Book from Dreams and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about all the things that I've read in May and I'm going to talk about my June TBR. Or maybe TBR, you'll see. So May has been an interesting reading month. That is, I haven't really read much that's been on my TBR. I've read 7 things. 5 of those were romance. So regular romance, sci-fi romance, or paranormal romance. Not paranormal, fantasy romance. I also read 2 fantasy books. I read 1 urban fantasy book and I DNF'd 1 book. So let's just start with the DNF because that I think is just easier to get out of the way and just move on. So the book I DNF'd in May is Rosewater by Tade Thompson. I know it's not Tade because I listened to the audiobook where they mentioned the name of the author. This book was, first of all, on a couple of my reading challenges. So it was part of my buzzword reading challenge for May, where you were supposed to read a book with flavoring or seasoning in the title. And it was also part of my Reddit's Fantasy Bingo challenge for the prompt to read a book by a POC author. And since I DNF'd it, I'm going to have to find a new one for Fantasy Bingo, which won't be a problem, but I will not be trying to figure out a new book for Buzzword Reading Challenge because it took me so much to find this one, so yeah. Secondly, I didn't think I would DNF it, but I knew that I wasn't going to be crazy about this book. So me DNFing it is not a surprise to me. So this is a sci-fi thriller set in Africa. In this story, we follow Karu, who is... he has an ability to read other people's minds, and he uses that ability to... he works in a call center, but he protects a bank from other psychic intruders, because this is something that's... it's not well known or widespread, but there are people with various abilities, in this alternate future of Africa. He also uses this power for governmental work. He works for a government agency which is up to no good, of course, and after 50% of the book he's given the task to find out who's been killing people like him. This is something that's been mentioned in the summary, what the book is about, but we don't get to that part of the book until we get after the 50% mark of the story, which is one of my problems with the stories, is that this whole book is book 1 in a trilogy, and it seemed to me that it just spent the entire thing setting up the world and setting up the character. I gave up on this book around 70% of the book because I did not care about anything. I wasn't intrigued. There wasn't anything that was gripping me or making me want to read this book. Because if you read the summary of the book, you find out that basically Rosewater is a town that developed around an alien dome that just appeared or whatever in this place. And people were sent inside the dome, and nobody knows what's happening inside the dome, but they know it's aliens and stuff. So I was expecting aliens. I was expecting first contact stuff. I was expecting, any kind of alien involvement. I'm 70% in, and there weren't any aliens. I later, while I was debating whether or not to DNF the book, I listened to a podcast where the author talked about this book, so I know what the book is about and how it ends and whatnot. And that did not make me want to read the book at all or finish it, so that's why I DNF'd it. And our main character that we follow, he's not very likable. He's not, sympathetic. He's not someone you can root for, which is something I think I need in my book. Yeah, that's the book I DNF'd. Then in the middle of the month, I decided I wanted to motivate myself to read. I sort of created little projects. I'll read 3 books of certain genre and then I'll make a video about it. And I started the Urban Fantasy Project, which I haven't finished. I read only 1 book of the 3 I wanted to. I read Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. This book is also on my 2000 to 2023 reading challenge. This book was published in 2006 and it sometimes shows. But anyway, this is the classic, the pillar of urban fantasy, which I haven't read yet, which was kind of surprising. Basically, if you Google urban fantasy, Patricia Briggs is one of the authors you will hear about immediately, next to Jim Butcher and Ilona Andrews and so many others. So basically, in Moon Called, we follow Mercy Thompson. Mercy is short for Mercedes, and that I had such a big eye roll when I found that out. I was like, really? Seriously? Anyway, So if you look at the cover is completely ridiculous, and it's just, ugh, whatever. But in this story, we follow Mercy, who is a skinwalker. She can shift into a coyote, which is very rare in this supernatural world that she lives in. Basically, it's our world, but with creatures that go bump in the night. She works as a mechanic. She lives next door to the alpha of the local werewolf pack, and she uses her friends and connections in the supernatural world to find out who killed a young werewolf that she met at the beginning of the book. What I really like about urban fantasy is that if you have a good world, you can build on it, and you can have very, very long-lasting series, which you do. This is book one in I don't know how many books in this series. And this world was very interesting. In this book, we get to meet werewolves, vampires, gremlins, and some kind of fae. And in this world, only a certain type of supernatural creature is known to the world, and all the other creatures are sort of preparing to come out and introduce themselves to the world, basically. So that sort of gives you a level of intrigue in the story. There is a hint of romance between Mercy and the leader of the werewolf pack, because he's sort of, throughout the story, we sort of find out that he sort of claimed her, but there's nothing really going on between them, because she doesn't want to be part of a pack because of her history, and she was raised by werewolves because she didn't really have a family of her own, and her mother was very flaky and basically I think abandoned her to this werewolf pack where she was treated differently because she wasn't a werewolf. She was a different kind of creature and such. But yeah, I had a lot of fun reading this. The case was interesting. The characters were fun to follow. The romance I always enjoy, but there's a romance in the story. So yeah, that was book one in my urban fantasy project. That at some point there'll be a video about it in the future. Then, the big thing with May was the Asian Readathon, hosted and created by Cindy. And I'll leave the link to the video announcement down below. The point of this readathon is to read books by Asian authors, and I had a whole list of 8-9 books that could be options for this readathon, and of this list I read 2 books. First book I want to talk about is Machinehood by S.B. Divya. So this is a science fiction thriller in which a terrorist group, Machinehood, through their actions want to make humans of the future, this is 100 years in the future from now, basically give up all the commodities and advantages of the world that they have now. So in the world that they're living in, basically you have implants in your body, you have that you can put stuff in and it can make you faster, more focused, make you heal quicker. Medicine is very easily accessible no matter where you are. It's your house doesn't have furniture, it has nanites that can turn into whatever you need. If you need a kitchen, then you have a kitchen. Then you press a button and say, well, can you please turn this cooker into a couch because, of reasons. And that's some ability that they have. You have helper robots, and you have artificial intelligence that kind of helps with everything. And so this terrorist group wants to make people give up all of that because, they, should I say this? This is a spoiler, so I can't tell you why they wanted that to happen, but it was a very interesting and fascinating read. In this book, we follow Velga. She is an ex-military person who now works as a bodyguard, and she was protecting one of the sort of creators of this big pill companies. Of course, her charge died, and now throughout the book, she is sort of set on figuring out where Machinehood operates from, and who the operatives are. And so she can fix whatever mistakes she's made and whatnot. But also on the other side, she's her brain is sort of falling apart because of all the stims and tablets and pills that she has been using. So there's sort of a conspiracy of whether that the pills that humans have been taking, are they good or bad? Is good because things are very hackable and whatnot. Everything is sort of awesome, but also with a major flaw that can basically kill you in a moment's notice. But what really made this story interesting to me were all the side characters that we follow. We follow Velga's sister-in-law from one side. Then we follow sort of the friends that the sister-in-law had. This world has a very strong gig economy, which basically means that people do little gigs for money, and the way you can make money is through those gigs and also through basically broadcasting your life, becoming not an influencer, but sort of a reality star. They're like daily vloggers of sorts. It was interesting following all these sort of supportive characters trying to survive and live in this world. There were so many interesting and, how do I say this, problems and themes that are so important for today that that were touched upon in this story. Like, first of all, there was a storyline with refugees. One of the characters we follow became a refugee and was running away from her hometown to a safe place to meet with one of our other characters. And throughout this her journey, harrowing and where she was worried about being able to finish work on her project, because in this gig-based economy she has to work to to keep making money, and so she wouldn't be dropped from this project or lose her job. So she would be trying to find pockets of the internet in the desert and whatnot, in the mountains and wherever she was traveling, so that she can work on her stuff and also help with the overarching problem in this story. We also follow Velma's sister-in-law. Okay, this is mild spoilers, but it was so well done, because I'm still thinking about it, and I read this book I think at the beginning of the month. So Velma's sister-in-law became pregnant, and the thing was that she is the breadwinner of her family, and so she makes the most money. So it wouldn't be wise for her family and her husband and I think she has another child, to stop working for 9 months, because when she's pregnant she has to stop taking all these pills and tablets that make her focus, make her very good at her job. So her option that she decided to do was to get an abortion. And the thing was, she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, okay, so what do you want to do? Okay, good. So this is I'll just send the information to your house, the robot doctor thing, and you'll get the tablets, and this is what you have to do. But wait, it says here that your husband is a part of the some sect of Christianity in the USA. Her husband is American, she is Indian, I believe, and we have to, because of I guess there's a contract or something between America and India. You have to have your husband's permission. Now, the thing with the husband is that he's a born-again Christian, which means that he has discovered a religion very late in his life, I think. And, when people discover things late in their life, they become a bit zealous, right? So he's, very much against this. So there's an interesting thing how that develops and resolves. It's just, the whole book is just filled with so many interesting themes, and I'm so glad I've read it. It wasn't on my radar at all. This is part of my Reddit fantasy bingo challenge, my sort of second part, where I had to pick books that were written by POC authors, and this was so good, and I immediately put a couple of more books by this author on my TBR, because it was really well done, and I had a really interesting time reading this one. Then another thing I read for the Asian Readathon was Iron Widow by Jiran J. Zhao. I probably mispronounced this name, I'm sorry. So this is a YA fantasy, also part of my Reddit fantasy bingo challenge for the YA thing. And I'll just read you the Goodreads review, because I liked it, but I'm not going to continue on with the series. I enjoyed reading this book, but I will not continue on in this series because I don't enjoy the feeling this world is invoking. This story follows a young girl who joins the military. Her family offers her up to be a concubine/consort to pilots, to be used sexually, and then killed when she goes into battle. The war that humans are waging in this world is against some alien life form, and the way they fight is an Jaeger-like machine, so think Pacific Rim, made from the aliens. Basically, the aliens gave them materials to make this thing, whatever. So this thing needs 2 people to pilot, a man and a woman, and usually the woman dies. Well, usually. Always. Our main character joins in the military to avenge her older sister and murder the pilot who killed her. After achieving her goal, she's named the Iron Widow, and then partnered up with the best pilot they have, who is a known murderer, not only of the women every time he fights, but also he murdered some family members, which is frowned upon, because I think he killed his father and brother or something. So yeah. No problem if you kill a woman, but if you kill a man, then that's bad. Together, they're trying to survive and bring down the system with the help of a young scholar. This book has many things. So we have a main female character who is fed up with the world, and her anger is very on page and very visceral, and you can feel it throughout the story. There's a fucking love triangle. There are battles, there are mysterious gods and aliens, corrupt governments, men hating women, constant threat of sexual assault, and just overall anger towards women. not a fun place to read about. So I did enjoy it, but I will not be continuing on with this series because it's just no. I think I can now judge that I don't want to, where I want to be, and just not force myself to read things that it would be read mostly for, I don't want to say clout, but for like, oh, you know, everybody's reading it and whatnot. I'm not doing that anymore because no. So those are the 2 books I read for the Asian Readathon. All the other books that I've mentioned in my TBR for this will probably be read throughout the year. Most of my second half of the month was spent reading romances. And usually when I'm not sure what I want to read, but I do know I want to read something romantic, I read Grace Draven or Ruby Dixon. So I found out that Ruby Dixon has 2 more books in her Ristaverse series. So Ristaverse is a series in which basically you have this planet Rista, and many human women that have been kidnapped from Earth and have been rescued are basically put on this planet to become farmers and, you know, live their lives because they can't go back to Earth. With every sort of, this is a novella, so with every story we follow one of these women as she sort of forms a relationship with one of the aliens living on this planet. So I read, I'm not even sure which books these are, but I read When She's Fearless, where we follow a main character who basically, after having horrific experiences, decided to just fuck fear, and she's going to be reckless and enjoy fun and enjoy, you know, being alive and do fun things that she wants. And that's what she does. And she meets a cat-like alien in her stream. She goes fishing and she meets him and she's like, oh, hello, hi, how are you? And then that's how their relationship sort of starts. And the second one I read is When She's When She's Very, W-A-R-I-Y, Jesus, can't spell, basically scared of things. So in this one we follow our, I think her name is Tabitha. She basically is a doomsday prepper. She has turned her little farm into bunker, and she has pits and traps and whatnot, and she meets an alien, and she sort of becomes intrigued by him, and she has been spending most of her time on this planet hiding from everybody, and this alien that she has met is very patient, and basically he spent 6 months getting to know her, being very slow with her, and, you know, not pushing things and whatnot, and, you know, relationship develops and whatnot. It's a fun little romance novella. Then I've read The King's Spinster Bride from Ruby Dixon as well. This is very similar to Half Orc's Bride, if you've read that one. So basically we follow a princess who saved the life of the barbarian king's son when the son was 8. So many moons later, he comes back to sort of claim her as his bride, because from that moment, I think she was like a prisoner or whatnot. She was put in a nunnery, and, you know, she was sent there to spend like the rest of her life there. And he comes back when he's like 24, and she's like, let's just say 5 or so years older than him. And he's like, okay, I'm back for you. You're going to be my bride. And then she has to sort of go through the barbarian wedding traditions, which are completely insane and over the top. But everything is sort of talked about, and, you know, everyone's consent is very important, and everyone's like making sure that everyone is comfortable with what was about to happen and whatnot. It was over the top. It was fun. It was just, you know, awesome. And then one of the romance booktubers that I follow mentioned one of the books. I think the video was on the theme of like romances where there's a language barrier, and this book was mentioned as an example of that, and that is Barbarian's Touch, which was book 7 in the Ice Planet Barbarians, where one of the characters we follow is deaf. So this was the book. I basically stopped reading the Ice Planet Barbarians series at book 6 because I read them a lot in a short amount of time, so I needed a break. So when this book was mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, I was reading that. So I went to check, and that was like the next book that I was supposed to get to. So I was like, oh, that's great, good. So I went to read it. And the thing with me reading Ruby Dixon and Grace Draven is I want to read smut. Like angsty romances is like a plus. I mean, a good plot is also a plus, and having good banter and whatnot, good character is also a plus, but mostly I read it for smut. So this story has smut, but only in like, it starts at the 90% of the book, which, you know, for someone who was reading it just for that was like, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, I read it. So if you don't know, the Ice Planet Barbarian series, we follow a group of human women who have been kidnapped and then basically left on this ice planet where they meet blue aliens with horns who basically have them as their mates. And then you sort of, through every book, you follow a different couple. Like in the last couple of books, there has been a lot of us reading about the girls learning how to survive on this planet. So making fires, hunting, making clothes, and, you know, whatever you need to survive on this alien planet. And it kind of becomes repetitive, it kind of becomes boring. But each of the characters does have their own sort of personal trauma and whatnot they're trying to deal with, and they do deal with the help of their alien romantic partners, mates, and whatnot. So they're good in that way, but, you know, if you read them a lot in a row, they can become repetitive. This one was fine. And the last book I want to talk about that I read in the month of May is Grace Draven's The Undying King. So, God, it has a cool premise, but I think it was published in like the early 2010s or something, where having like, and it's not a hissy fit, but having an overreaction to something, I guess, was popular. So here's the story. We follow a girlie whose name escapes me, of course. So she has been cursed because of reasons I don't remember right now. That she would, you know, whenever she touches somebody, that person dies. So she's basically spent her entire life covered. Every part of her body has been covered, and she's been raised by a hedge witch. And she, after the hedge witch dies, she basically tells her, go find the Undying King. He will help you lift your curse. So she goes on a quest to find this Undying King dude, and he lives in this town, in this abandoned city, which sort of like appears in the world, you know, sporadically. So you have to be, you know, very careful when you go find the thing, and so you can enter the city and whatnot. So the Undying King is a dude who's been cursed because he was not a very good dude. But he is very pretty, and everybody was commenting on how pretty he is, and he's very powerful in his magic and whatnot. But he's cursed and stuck in this town, city to like protect it from looters and whatnot. So when she finds him, they basically discover, since she kills things with her touch and he's the Undying King, she can touch him without consequence. Like taking his life, like I guess life force, but not really, how do I say this, killing him, because there's no chance, because he's been cursed. So the two of them sort of start friendship / romance. At one point, she basically is like, great, I can touch you, you're going to teach me about sex, which was really interesting because the whole story is actually very sex positive, because he doesn't use sex and her lack of knowledge of sex to shame her, and she's not like all innocent and whatnot. I mean, she couldn't have done stuff with other people because she would kill them, but she had a very, like, her adoptive mother was very open about, you know, what goes on between a man and a woman, and, you know, like what she can expect and whatnot. So it was very sex positive in that way, but, you know, and then them sort of getting it on and whatnot, because basically he takes her to his room at one point and shows her his porn collection, which is basically like a bunch of portraits on the wall of like various sex acts and whatnot. So that was kind of funny. But the thing that kind of irked me the most, so this dude has been, she knows that this dude is like powerful, and he's called the Butcher. And then at one point she finds out why he's called the Butcher, and then she has this overblown overreaction, which is like completely like he murdered like a bunch of people in front of her at that moment. And it was so annoying and irritating that just immediately it was like, okay, fuck this. This is just, no. So I had to like pause for a second and then get back to it so I can finish the story. Because the ending is also kind of seemed a bit rushed, because of course that was the whole third act breakup and whatnot. And throughout the story, people have been trying to catch this woman because like she is like the long lost something of somewhere, and if this royalty person gets her, he can lay claim to some land and whatnot. So he sent his mage and army to get her, and it's totally stupid. But I was there for the romance, and I got fun stuff with the romance until we got to the overreaction part of the story, and then after that it was kind of like bleh. So those are all the things that I've read in May. Now to my June TBR. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but this will be like I just saw them recently TBR, so maybe to be reads, I guess, because as I said, I've been having a difficult time sort of finding motivation to read, so I'm creating little projects. So my little project for June is to focus on the audiobooks I have on my phone. I have 32 audiobooks on my phone, which is a lot. So I'm going to focus on getting to them and listening to them and doing stuff. Now the problem was that I broke like 2 different wireless headphones in the last month, so I have to get new ones. That's the first thing. So that was something that was kind of preventing me from reading and stuff. But I do have a bunch of these things that I have on my phone. I do have it physical form, so I can follow along. So I think that will make me get through the books faster. So yeah, here are some of the books I might get to. I want to focus on some of the new releases that have come out in the year 2023. And I want to read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi. I want to buy Shannon Chakraborty. I want to read Rubicon by J.S. Doves. I want to read Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. I want to read In the Life of Puppets by T.J. Klune. You know, I have stuff I want to read. I also want to, since this is Pride Month, I want to also focus on fantasy that has LGBTQ plus representation. You know, also books that are on my reading challenges. And when I went through my reading challenges, I have found like 5 books, but there are probably more, like from my previous TBRs and such. So I have Fire Logic, I have Amberlow, I have The Unbroken, I have The Final Strife, I have Jasmine Throne, which has been on my TBR for 2 months and still hasn't been read, you know. And I want to like get to the books that I put on my TBRs for the last 5 months and didn't get to, and that are part of my reading challenges and whatnot. So I have lots of options. Now, what I will read from those, who knows? We'll see at the end of June, right? So yeah. So that's everything I have for this video. If you have managed to survive till now, yay! You can press the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. There are some links down below in the description box for you to check out. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!